Right now, we're going to talk to Larry Hedrick, who is the co-creator of the Superstition Mountain Museum and responsible for making it what it is today. All right, the Peralta Stones. Where did they actually come from?
Okay, a detective from, I think it was Washington or Oregon, he had stopped along the highway to, I guess, relieve himself, and he accidentally kicked something, and he thought it was strange, so he dug it up and found these stone maps. And there's pictures of them displayed on the bumper of his car and all sorts of things like that. But as I got to thinking about the relationship of those maps and why they were there and said what they said, I tied that in. And I'm not saying this is true. This is my theory, that I tied them in with the Baron of Arizona. Now, James Addison Reavis was born in 1843 in Missouri, and he joined the Confederate Army. And whether he had calligraphy capabilities beforehand, he did discover that he was very good at forging passes, which in the Confederate Army were all handwritten. And he could make that pass. Nobody could tell the difference. He could sign the commander's name, and he went on leave several times. And he done it for his buddies. And he also done it for people who would grease his palm. And as it became obvious that the South was losing, he deserted the Confederate Army and joined the Union Army. And he got caught doing that because most of their stuff was printed. And so anyway, after the Civil War, he started west and he went through Santa Fe. And Santa Fe was discovered by the Peraltas, so he knew the name Peralta. You know, he had to have. And he finally made it on out to the Phoenix area. And he had met up with somebody that had some Spanish land grants. I'm not going to try to go into in-depth detail because, you know, I have forgotten a lot of things too. And dates and names escape me, but these Spanish land grants came in his possession after the fellow that had them had passed away. And there were several of them, which he combined into one massive land grant that extended from about Luke Air Force Base to 30 miles inside of New Mexico, from the Salt River to the Gila River. And in order to pull off his escapade, he went into Mexico to these places where the name escapes me, but these places where they store this kind of information, and wanted to pose as kind of wanting to be a monk, you know. And he left a sample of his calligraphy, and it was so good they put him to work in the archives, exactly what he wanted to happen. And he altered some of the documents in these archives. And while he was there, using their 100-year-old formula for their ink, and while he was there, he discovered that copies were in Spain. So he goes to Spain, and he gets involved in changing documents in Spain. And then when he comes back, he hangs a document up everywhere and says, I own this grant, and you're going to leave or pay me to be here. And the first one to pay was the Silver King Mine, and then the railroad. And other people said, my gosh, if the Silver King Mine, which is extremely rich, and the railroad were paying it, it must be true. So a lot of people started forking over money. But there were people who were suspicious of all of this. Now, when the United States came into owning the Southwest, which they purchased, they didn't steal it, they made it clear that any legal Spanish land grant before 1848 would be recognized. Well, the stone maps have the date of 1847. Now, isn't that a coincidence? Because the Reavis had went to the north end of the Estrella Mountains, and there was some Indian hieroglyphs out there. And it's still there today. You can go there. I haven't been there, but I've seen pictures of it. And he drew his rectangular grant on this petroglyph boulder and other things on there that substantiated his claim. And they're there to this day. Now, the maps, I believe, were placed there also by Reavis to substantiate his claim. But the point being is the United States government sent somebody to Spain and found out that he didn't use that 100-year-old ink, and some of the paperwork that he did was written with a steel fountain pen. Not a fountain pen, but a dip pen, whatever you call it. And he got caught. So therefore, the stone maps were of no value. Why would he go back and get them or anything like that? And that's my theory, that the maps were part of his substantiation of his claim.
You know, a long time ago I saw the movie with Vincent Price where he played the Baron of Arizona. So how does he actually tie in, not Vincent Price, but the Baron himself, tie into this story about the stone tablets?
Well, I think the legend of the Peraltas date back further than that, but he was aware of it. He probably knew the Dutchman, you know. The Phoenix was 3 blocks wide and 5 blocks long at the time, you know. And he was probably very aware of it, you know, and to make his claim the way he did would include that, whether he believed it or not. But
so then the so-called Peralta Stones.
This is my theory now.
It's a theory. It's a good theory.
Well, now the museum is involved with salvaging fact, fiction, and legend. We don't say anything is true or anything is false. It's either fact, fiction, or legend. And I'm talking about legend.
You know, we like the idea of the museum that you started and is doing well because of you. And that's why we're here. We're here to tell the real tales. And I don't want to say true stories, they're tales. We don't want to make anything up. These are the actual tales that are out there that we want to present to our audience. Well, Larry, now tell us about the stones at the museum. Are they the originals?
The Flag Foundation ended up with the stones, and that's the ones that were down in the museum in Phoenix for a long time. And what was it, Mineral Museum in Phoenix? Yeah. They closed. I think they're going to reopen, or maybe they already have, but this was several years ago. And they were convinced to bring them out to our place, and they're happy where they're at.
So those are the originals?
Right.
Okay, well that's good. Because even if they don't date back other than James Addison Reavis, they're still pretty historical. Still pretty cool to think about.
Well, they date back to 1847, supposedly.
So actually what you're saying is those stones may not have anything to do with any mine up there at all.
Well, that's why I said he knew the story. He knew the Dutchman. And he had to take away from the fact that he was trying to substantiate his claim. So therefore he used the Dutchman legend, the Peralta legend, in his maps, because the important thing was the date.
Was there really a Peralta family that had?
Yes.
There was, and did they do any mining up there?
The Peralta family that was here when he was there was not related to the Peraltas in Mexico. Hard as that is to understand, but there's a lot of Smiths and Joneses that are not related.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains. And join us next time for some more great tales. And remember, we're actually going to be going up there and we're going to be seeing a lot of these places. So stick around. We're just waiting for it to cool down a bit. Right here on Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains.